Okay, so I'm recording this call. This is the webinar all about ways in which you can boost your energy and maximize your time. So I know we have a few of you who are here live with me tonight. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for showing up. Feel free throughout the evening and right now even just to say hi in that chat box. Let me know where you're joining from. Like I mentioned, I am here in Boston working out of my apartment, which is where I do all of my coaching calls and my live videos. And so I'm just really excited to take this opportunity to dive into energetics and just kind of deeply explore how time and energy are connected, with the hopes that this just kind of helps to simplify and maybe manifest some changes in your own personal life. So a couple of things. I just first really want to take a moment and just acknowledge those of you who are here tonight joining me live. I'm just so thrilled. And I just want to acknowledge you're taking some time out of your life, if this is about an hour of your time, but our lives are busy. We have work, we have other commitments. And so I just really want to acknowledge that you're showing up, that you're going to make the most of this education and this class together. And I just want to acknowledge that you're really taking some time for yourself. This is all about self-care, self-awareness, and just kind of showing up and being open to learning something new about time and energy. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And I also want to acknowledge those of you who are catching the replay. I know a bunch of you couldn't make it tonight, but you emailed me to let me know that you're going to watch the replay. So I also want to acknowledge those of you who are watching the recording of this webinar, again, for just taking the time out of your life to follow up and to hopefully learn something new and just kind of open yourself up for some self-discovery and self-transformation. So, okay, tonight, let's see. We are diving in. We're going to talk about energy and time. And so just to kind of give you a brief outline, we're going to be talking about the 7 levels of energy. And we're also going to be exploring the 2 classifications of energy. And my goal with this information tonight is to help you recognize where you might be wasting energy, where your energy resources might be being depleted or drained throughout the day. Because when our energy is depleted, when it is drained, we often don't have enough energy or then therefore time to be able to do the things that we love and want to do. So time and energy are very connected. And the thing is that energy, it's so prevalent in our lives and we never really take the time to explore it or talk about it, which is really why I wanted to dive into this webinar tonight. Every single thought that we have, the inner dialogue we have nonstop throughout the day, every thought that we have, all the emotions and feelings that we feel up and down, that kind of roller coaster of emotions, and every single action and step we take, every move we make, every activity we complete, goal we go after, it all requires energy. So energetics is behind our existence, basically, and it's tied into time. And so my goal with this webinar is to take this time to dive into the energetics, to let you know how it's correlated to time, and then to invite you to just kind of open yourself up and be vulnerable to the information shared and just kind of check in with yourself. And through this process tonight, ask yourself where you might be draining energy, what old rules and beliefs and fears you might be living by that are holding you back and protecting you in an unhealthy way. And just, how you can break some of these habits, how you can implement some work-life balance and some self-care into your life so that you can maximize your time and really boost your energy. So you can do more of what you love. So that's the goal. So we're going to talk about the 7 levels of energy. We're also going to go over that energetic self-perception chart I emailed you guys. Hopefully you have that up on a tab. If you don't worry about it. We're going to see a slide of it shortly. And if you looked at that chart and had no idea how to read it and you were a little overwhelmed, don't worry. The first time I ever went over that chart, it was created by Bruce Schneider, who taught me all about energetics. The first time I looked at that chart, I was completely overwhelmed and had no idea how to read it. So if that was your first reaction, it's totally normal. We're going to cover that. And then the great thing is that you then have access to, I like to call it like an energetic map. You have access to that map forever now. And so you're going to be able to look back at it, maybe print it out, refer to it, and it's going to help remind you about the 7 levels of energy. And also will serve as a reminder for you when you want to make some changes in your life, when you want to shift your mindset and boost your energy. So that's kind of an additional tool and gift for you all. So we're going to go over that. And then I'm just going to be completely upfront and honest right now. The last 5 minutes of this webinar, I'm going to talk about some additional opportunities that you can pursue outside of this call. If you want to personally dive deeper into energetics, I have 2 different opportunities in which you can do so. I just want to be completely upfront and transparent and honest about that right now. And I'll give you a heads up when we're shifting the last 5 minutes into talking about those 2 opportunities. I'll give you the heads up so that if you are done, if you came and got what you wanted and were looking for it, feel free to hop off the call. And if you want to stick around for those opportunities, I'll stick around, and then I'll also stick around if there are additional questions after the webinar. And the great thing is that you ever have to hop off, before this ends, I'm going to send you the recording, so you can always refer back to this webinar and check in with the information continuously. All right. So with that, we are going to jump into tonight's workshop. So before I get into the nitty-gritty information, I know there are a lot of new faces joining me tonight and catching this recording. So I just wanted to introduce myself real quick. My name is Tori, and I am a personal time and energy strategist. So the way that I kind of look at this and the way that I came about building this business all around work-life balance and time and energy is that I tapped into my values. So some of my top values that I have incorporated into my life since high school, basically, so the first time I can remember living them. I love work-life balance. I always have. I love self-care time. I'm an extroverted introvert, so I need that time for myself to recharge my batteries. And I also really value time management, productivity, organization. I love efficiency. These are things that I really value. I also really value freedom. And so growing up, these were values that were really important to me in ways that I showed up in my own life. And then on the other hand, I really love to teach. I really love to educate and to mentor. I love to connect one-on-one and support people on their journeys. And I've always loved to do this. And so it dawned on me after years of kind of utilizing these 2 gifts in very different parts of my life. I worked in education for a while, and I really got to use my efficiency and organization and scheduling tactics there. And I've always loved to connect and mentor and help. So building this business as a time and energy strategist, I've actually combined my 2 passions into one. And now I get to help people one-on-one and in office spaces. I get to help companies and people maximize their time, boost their energy, simplify their life, break those old rules and habits, really step into those values of freedom and efficiency and work-life balance. And I love it. Not gonna lie, it's the best. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. And now we're gonna jump into this information. And I just wanted, before we jumped into the 7 levels of energy and get down to it, I wanted to share 2 quick examples with you of how this energy work can really be applied to your own life. I think it's really important to have examples and analogies you can refer back to. I'm a really visual person, and I love a good example and story. So I wanted to share with you 2 success stories so that when you start to process this information tonight and apply it to your own life, you have some examples that you can look back on. Because here's the thing, people think that this work, making changes to your life, they have to be big, drastic changes, and that's just not true. Some of the smallest tweaks and changes, just small changes in how you show up and how you shift your mindset can have huge effects, huge ripple effects in your life, but they don't have to be big changes or life-altering changes, if you will. So I'm just going to give you 2 quick examples so you just get a better grasp about what I am talking about. So I have one person I worked with, who still work with, who came to me a few months ago because she once a week in her job has to work the night shift. And she had so much anxiety around this night shift. She would spend the whole day leading up to the night shift just filled with anxiety and stress and was just overwhelmed. And it just ruined her day. And she was just really overwhelmed and anxious. She had the anxious butterflies. And then she would spend all of the night shift just really tense, just counting down the minutes until she was off of the shift. And then she would spend the following day wasting her time and her energy because she needed to recharge. She was so depleted from the past 36 hours of dread and anxiety and tension that she then needed to take an extra day and a half to recharge. And it was starting to affect how she showed up at work. It was starting to affect her purpose, and it was starting to affect her relationships with her boyfriend. And she was realizing that she was wasting 3 days out of the week. So she came to me and we worked through this, and all we did is we shifted her energetics. We shifted the thoughts she was having about the night shift. And it was a small tweak. And she wasn't going to show up and say, I love the night shift. This is awesome. But she did make a purposeful transformation and shift in how she thought about the night shift and the reality of it and the truth behind it. And that simple shift shifted the way she felt about it. She no longer had to feel stressed or anxious or tense. She could just feel grounded and calm and knowing that it was going to happen, and no matter what, she was going to get through it. And that allowed her to show up differently. And so this, just talking through this process and shifting her mindset allowed her to release all of those low energy vibes she was feeling. And now she doesn't dread the night shift the same way. She doesn't waste that full day leading up to the night shift, and she doesn't need as much time to recharge afterwards. And it's really changed the way she's shown up at work, and it's really changed the relationship with the boyfriend. So that's great news. And then the second example I have is I am working with a client who gives of herself all day long. She works with clients and with patients all day long, and she just gives, and she gets really wrapped up into their stories and their problems, and she loves to help them and loves to serve them. But sometimes she gives too much of herself, and what it means is that by the end of the day, she is completely drained. She's exhausted. She's depleted of all of her energy. So it means that throughout the day, she gets exhausted, and that by the end of the day, she doesn't have the energy or the resources to be able to do the things she wants to do outside of work. So she can't do the things that she loves outside of her job. And so she came to me and she knew she was headed for burnout and she didn't know what she was going to do. So we implemented two small changes, just two small changes to her life. The first one is that 2 to 3 times during the workday, when she's starting to feel depleted, when she's starting to feel like she's falling into those lower levels of energy, she takes 30 seconds for herself. That is it. And she just breathes for 30 seconds. And she just allows her mindset to come back to the present moment. She shifts her thoughts. She shifts how she's showing up. She reminds herself of her purpose, and she lets go of all of the negative energy. And that really allows her to kind of reboost her energy source. And then after work, what we realized is that she needed to decompress. She needed to be able to allow herself some space and some time to let the day go and just be, set some boundaries for herself, and then recharge herself so she could do what she wanted at night. And so for her, she carved out only 5 minutes of decompressing time. And one thing she loves to do that she'd been missing from her life is she loved Indian dance. And she was no longer practicing that, and she really missed that. So now every day after work, when she comes home, the first thing she does is she puts on some music and she dances for 5 minutes, and it allows the day to be let go. And it allows her, when she's feeling depleted, it allows her to decompress and then get a little bit of another boost of energy so that she can do those things after work that before she didn't have energy to do so. So those are just 2 quick examples of how small mind shift changes and how awareness about energetics can really help you change how you show up and allows you to have more energy throughout the day so that you can maximize your time and utilize it in a different way to get more out of your day and more out of your life. So I just want to share those 2 examples with you. And so now what we're going to do is, I just want to make sure I was recording this webinar. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to shift into my slideshow. So a couple things before I slip into the slideshow. I just want to invite you at this point to grab a piece of paper and a pen and just jot down any notes that you want to take away from this webinar. Again, you're going to have access to the recording. But I also just want to invite you right now to really just let down your guard and show up with an open mind and just kind of be open to this information presented and really be aware of how you respond and resonate, what triggers you, what comes up for you, and jot that down as we go over these different levels of energy and how it might be showing up in your life and impacting you in different ways. And I also want to invite you to act like a sponge, which is something I tell my clients all the time. Act like a sponge. So soak in all of this information, soak in the questions, soak in your reactions, just soak it all in without any judgment. And throughout the call, if you have questions, I'm going to be checking the chat box from time to time. If any questions come up, feel free to type them out. And if you want to wait till later, if you want to ask me one-on-one, that's totally fine. Just shoot me an email later today, later tonight, tomorrow, whenever. I'm happy to follow up with questions off the webinar as well. But feel free to write your questions out. A lot of times clients that I work with and go over energetics with don't have questions in the moment because I ask them to act like that sponge and just soaking in all the information. And then when the webinar ends, just decompress. process everything, let it all go, and just kind of sit with it. And then if questions come up later that didn't come up in the moment, reach out to me then. So I want to invite you just to keep this dialogue and this connection going. So give me a moment as I now share my screen with you. Pull up the webinar. Woo. Uh-oh, hold on one sec. Let me make sure that this is me. Nope. Hold on. Okay. Technology, edits, best and or worst. Okay, hopefully this works. Bear with me, this is my first time doing this webinar. Okay, here we go. So again, we are talking about energy and maximizing time. So the 3 big takeaways from tonight. We're going to talk about the 2 main classifications of energy. We are going to be really diving into those 3 lower levels of energy that are zapping your resources without you even realizing it and just leaving you feeling drained, exhausted, and just depleted. And then I'm going to be sharing, and again, I've already given you 2 examples, but I'm going to be sharing with you the process, the tool I use with my clients to help them boost their energy and step into action when they're feeling drained and depleted. So those are the 3 big takeaways for tonight. And here are some key nuggets I just want you to keep in mind as we move through this information. The first is just to have awareness that when we think about time in our life and how we're showing up and using our time, time is the only non-renewable resource in our life. So we always have the opportunity to make more money, to get a new job, to advance, get an advanced degree, go back to school, make new friends. We always have that time and the resources. I mean, we always have the energy and the resources to do other things. Time is a non-renewable. There are only 24 hours in a day. There's never going to be 25 hours. There's never going to be 23 hours. So it's really up to you to figure out how to best utilize your time, and to really also figure out if you feel like you have lack of time, to figure out where you're wasting it or where you might be depleted energetically so you're not utilizing your time the way that you want to. So just important to keep that in mind. And that leads into the second point that, a way to make better use of our time is to have more energy, right? To have that energy to do more of the things that we love, whether it's in the morning or after work or on the weekends, and be able to show up the way that we want and to really kind of boost overall happiness and life satisfaction. And I also want to have you keep in mind energetics, physics, the law of attraction, just that like energy attracts like energy. So if you find yourself throughout this webinar resonating in those lower levels of energy, maybe because of factors in your life that might be environmental, that might be situational, who knows, just keep in mind that if you're resonating at these lower levels of energy regularly, you're attracting that energy into your life from other people, maybe problems, obstacles that you're facing in your life. And so if you're able to then boost your energy levels with this awareness, with this knowledge that you're going to learn tonight, you're going to be able to attract new, uplifting, positive energy into your life. And people who resonate those higher levels, you're going to be able to attract new opportunities and creative ideas and solutions to the problems. So just keeping in mind that like energy attracts like energy, and you're able to manifest whichever energy that you want to show up with and whichever energy you want to attract into your life. So I just want to share that with you. Make sure to covered all of that. Okay, so here we go. There are 2 classifications of energy. The first is anabolic energy, and the second is catabolic energy. Now, I mentioned I like analogies, and so I'm going to kind of use examples of body hormones to help explain this. So anabolic energy is like testosterone. It is energy that is constructive, it is healing, and it is growth-oriented. It's positive and uplifting. So, for example, if you think about people who purposely take testosterone, they take testosterone because they want to bulk up, they want to get stronger. So they take it in order to heal their muscles, to boost them, to help them grow bigger. So anabolic energy is like this growth-oriented testosterone hormone. That's how you can remember. Catabolic energy, on the other hand, is draining. It's really resistant energy. It's really destructive, especially over long periods of time. So this is related to cortisol, right? Cortisol is that hormone that's released when we are under stress, when we have some adrenaline, we have that adrenaline rush, we kind of get that zap of energy. And once in a while, that can be really useful, right? In a life or death situation, and when we're kind of in fight and flight mode and we have to react quickly, that boost of cortisol can be really helpful. But if you think about kind of living with that cortisol for long periods of time, if you're chronically stressed or exhausted or always in that fight or flight mode, that cortisol over time is very destructive to your body. It actually breaks it down. And so that is what catabolic energy does. It's draining and it's resistant and it's destructive. So it's important to keep these two classifications of energy in mind as we move through the rest of this webinar. Okay, here it is. Here is the energetic self-perception chart or map of energetics that you all have in your email. So you're going to have access to this. And I recommend and encourage you to print it out and just kind of keep it handy after this webinar. So like I said, there is a lot going on in this chart. It can be a little overwhelming and confusing. So there's two ways to read it. So we're going to break it down. So the first way to read it is to read it from the inner part of the circle and chart outwards. So you're going to kind of notice there are those 7 dots of colors. There's like a red one and then a pink one and a yellow one all the way up to purple. Those are the 7 different levels of energy. They're highlighted with those 7 different dots of color. So in the innermost circle of the chart, the dark blue circle, that encompasses the first 2 levels of energy. Those are the lowest levels of energy. And so when we fall into those lowest levels of energy, this is where we're concerned only on ourselves. We have no awareness for anyone else. We're very self-centered in these 2 levels. There's a lot of ego and there's a lot of unconscious thought and unconscious dialogue that is controlling how we show up and controlling our thoughts and our feelings and our action. So the energy level is very low and the ego is very high. All right, so that's the dark blue circle. Then you're going to move out a ring into the lighter blue circle, and that encompasses energetic levels 3, 4, and 5. And in these levels, there is more energy, right? We are no longer in that catabolic draining energy zone. We're now in the anabolic energy zone. So there is still some ego, but it's not as strong, right? So there is less concern just with our own selves and our own egos, and there's more awareness of the world around us and our interactions with others. And this is where we have more awareness. We're more able to live with less judgment and more being able to live more in the moment. And then the purple ring, the outermost ring, that encompasses levels 6 and 7. So those are the most anabolic energy levels. That is where we have the highest amount of energy. And this is where there is absolutely no ego. There is no judgment. There is no kind of labeling or being boxed in or really no feeling of lack. And so this is where we're completely conscious and living in the moment, in the present. So that's how you read the chart from the innermost circle outwards. Now the second way you can read this chart is you're going to read it from left to right. So you'll see those 3 columns. One is labeled core thought. The other is labeled core feeling and emotion. And the third is labeled action and result. And so I talked about at the beginning of the webinar how energetics are behind every single thought and feeling and action that we put out into the universe. And so the way that we show up day in and day out, either whether it's conscious or subconscious, is everything starts with some sort of core thought. And that core thought is tied to one of these 7 levels of energy. So there's energetics behind every single thought that we have. And we have a million thoughts a day. Think of how many thoughts you have and how many conversations you have a day, right? So every thought is tied to an energetic level. And when we have that thought, we then produce some sort of feeling or emotion, which is attached to the energy level and attached to that core thought. And that leads to some sort of action or inaction if we are coming from a very low energy level. So you read this from left to right. Thought, emotion creates an action. And this kind of ties into the 7 levels of energy. And so this is why it's such a great chart to print out and have as a reminder later in life when you're kind of checking in with yourself and kind of asking yourself, I wonder which energy level I'm resonating at right now. I wonder how I can shift my thought. And by shifting my thought, shift my energy. So that is part of that secret tool and what I work with clients to help them shift how they're showing up and shift their awareness and their mindset. So that is the energetic chart. And now we're going to jump into the 7 levels of energy. So I'm actually going to break out of this for 1 second, just see if there are any questions real quick. Okay, if you have a question, type it in. Let me know what's coming up for you, if anything. And just keep in mind, as we dive in, we're going to dive into the 7 levels right now. What I want you to keep in mind is that we all resonate in these 7 levels of energy throughout any given day. We bounce in and out of them. So we might be, for some of us, we might be showing up in these lower levels of energy more regularly, more frequently. For some of us, we might only tap into them every once in a while. When we tap into these different energy levels, we might be tapping into them for mere seconds, then moving out of them. We might be sticking around and using that energy source for a couple of minutes. Or we might be there for longer periods of time, but you have the ability and the awareness to shift in and out of them when you have the awareness. Okay. So your change, depending on your interaction, or is it just, yeah, so it changes. The energy levels change. I think that's your question. So your change depending on okay, perfect. Awesome. We're thinking on the same page. So yeah, so you have the ability to change your energy levels, and right now, without the awareness, you're doing it subconsciously. And you're gonna, as we go through these 7 levels, you're kind of pick up different experiences in your life where you probably are experiencing these different levels of energy. And so after this webinar, you're gonna be able to check in with yourself with this awareness and with these tools and be able to more purposely shift your energy level, especially from the lower levels to the higher levels. So hopefully that made sense. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to my slideshow. And as we go through these 7 levels, I just really want to invite you to reflect and be open to these different levels and just kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself, you know, what triggers these different levels of energy in your life when you're experiencing them? How long are you staying in the lower levels of energy? And what would it look like if you were able to shift out of them? Knowing that you can jump from the lower levels, you can kind of walk up this ladder. You can go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, kind of up this ladder, or with enough experience and practice, you can actually jump to higher levels and kind of skip some of the steps, which is pretty cool. All right, so I'm gonna grab a sip of water because I've been talking a lot, and I'm gonna share my screen one more time, and we're gonna dive into the 7 levels. All right, here we go. So level 1 energy, this is the lowest level of energy. It is where it's all catabolic energy, right? So it's destructive and it's draining. So just like the energetic chart we just reviewed, where there's a core thought, a core feeling, and then an action, I've kind of written out some examples here of how level 1 might be showing up for you in your life. So often the thought of people who are experiencing level 1 energy is that they're a victim. They're a victim of lack of time and energy in their life. And the emotion they then experience is that of apathy, which is basically the lack of interest, the lack of enthusiasm, lack of concern. And when they're feeling this lack, when they're feeling like the victim of life, basically, the action is that of lethargy. So there's no action. It's really hard to move into action. So an example phrase, I have an example phrase for each of these levels, is that you might be thinking, I don't have any time or energy, and I hate myself for allowing this. So for those of you who, we all experience level 1 from time to time in our life, but some of us resonate in this level a lot more than others. So this is where, when we're in level 1 energy, we feel a lot of emotions of regret and worry and concern and anxiety. This is also where we feel guilt and shame and where fear lives. So these are the emotions that really hold us back and really hold us down. And so oftentimes the inner dialogue we might be having with ourselves are the woulda, coulda, shoulda. I would do this if I had more time. I could do this if I had more energy. I should be doing this, but I really don't have the time or the energy. So that's kind of the inner dialogue that we often have when we are in level 1 energy. And often what happens is that we have goals, we have ideas we want to do. We want to be able to do things after work, for example. We want to be able to go to the gym. We want to be able to cook a healthy meal, but we don't have the energy, so we don't do it. And then what happens is when we don't have the energy to do the things that we want, and we kind of are blaming the world around us because we're in victim mode, we then get into this cycle where we start to blame and resent the world around us, and not being able to show up the way that we want to show up, not being able to have the time and energy to do the things that we want. And then we feel regret and guilt and shame for not being able to show up the way that we want to show up. And that makes us feel worse. And then we feel more anxiety and concern. So there's just a lot of negative energy, feelings that we feel, emotions that we feel in this lowest level of energy. And it can feel really confusing and overwhelming to know what to do in this state, right? Because you want to make a change, but you don't exactly have the energy to do so. And so now with this awareness, you're going to be able to check in with yourself and say, okay, I'm feeling, lack of enthusiasm. I feel lack of interest. I'm feeling really drained right now. I'm going to ask myself why. I'm going to check in with myself, and then I'm going to purposely decide to change whatever thought I have right now so that I can show up differently. And just small changes can give you that small boost. Doesn't have to be a big boost to then be able to step into some sort of action. This is also the energy level where we get stuck in that pattern of not feeling good enough. So I'm not smart enough. I'm not active enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not qualified enough. And so we get kind of stuck in this negative pattern where we beat ourselves up. When we beat ourselves up, it brings us lower into the energy. And again, it is another cycle of just having no energy and no interest in being able to make changes in our own life and playing that victim card full out. And when we're in this really catabolic energy level, we're really blocked off and we're really tunnel vision. It's really hard to see all of the opportunities to feel grateful for what we do have. So this is the lowest level of energy. And now that you have some information and some awareness around this lowest level of energy, I really just want to invite you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, where and when does this energy level show up for you? What triggers it? What part of your life, what experiences, what people, what interactions bring you into this lowest level of energy? And for you, what does it feel like when you're experiencing it? How does it show up for you? And what do you end up attracting? Remember, like energy attracts like energy. So when you're in this lower level of energy, what might you be attracting into your life? What might you be pushing aside and not pulling in? And if with this awareness, if you had more time, if you had more energy outside of level 1, what would you be doing differently? How would you show up differently? What else could you get out of life that would make some changes, even if they were small changes? So just kind of think and reflect on that. And again, jot down any notes that come up for you, any thoughts, because this is great stuff that you can use in self-reflection and self-discovery when you're being that sponge and you're processing. So moving on, level 2 energy. Again, catabolic. It is in the innermost circle of the self-perception chart. And the thought behind this level energy is that of conflict with self and with others around time and energy. So this is a really reactive energy level. The emotions here are that of anger and irritation, and the action is defiance. So this is a really heated level of energy. And so the example sentence that you might have in your brain at times is, in your mind, is, I will fight using my energy in order to get ahead. So this is the energy level where we feel like we need to fight for our time, we need to fight for our energy, and we're going to fight other people to basically win the game of life, to get ahead in whatever terms that means for us. So for people who spend a lot of time in level 2 energy, they're spending a lot of time in comparison mode. They're spending a lot of time feeling angry and frustrated and pissed off, blaming others. Oftentimes, people who show up with a lot of level 2 energy, they're kind of bully their way through life. They don't care who they trample or run over. And they oftentimes feel resentment. There's a lot of resentment in this energy level. So you can resent people if you feel like you are putting in all this additional time and energy at work to try to get ahead, and other people are slacking off, or they're leaving before you are, or you feel like they're not pulling their own weight, and you get irritated and frustrated. That is level 2 energy. We have this really bad habit in America of comparing. How long did you study for that test? And how long did you stay at work last night? And how many hours of sleep did you get? We have this really bad habit of comparing, all the lack in our lives and like how much we are striving to get ahead, basically. And that is all level 2 energy. Level 2 energy also comes from a place of lack of boundaries. So for a lot of people, especially yes people, people who always say yes, who never say no, who don't have the boundaries, they experience level 2 energy when they take on too much. They take on too many work projects. They take on too many friend dates. They take on too many school projects, whatever it is, they take on too much. And then when they have to deliver, and they don't have the time or energy to do so, they then feel resentment. They resent others who ask them for help. They resent their boss for the projects they have to do. They resent the people for not helping them. And so there's a lot of resentment and feeling on edge and just feeling angry in this energy level. And just like level 1, it can be really easy to get caught up in this really negative emotion-fueled energy level, and it can be hard to break out of it. You know that when you start to get angry, especially if you start to have those visions or that dialogue of you confronting someone or beating someone up or yelling at someone, even if you would never do that, you know, that even those internal thoughts, it's all about energetics, and you're getting caught up in this spiral, caught up in this story, even if it never plays out. And it can be really easy to let those emotions of anger and irritation and frustration just kind of keep you there. And when it keeps you there in that cycle, you're wasting your time. You could be releasing that energy, releasing that anger, and moving on with your life and doing other things that are more productive, right? You could do stuff for yourself, for others. So I just wanted to make you aware of this really reactionary level of energy. And now it's time for some self-reflection. So just, when is it that you are tapping into this level 2 energy? When are you feeling angry and irritated and pissed off at life? What are the triggers? How can you release this energy? How can you release this kind of win-lose scenario you might be creating in your mind? For me, I know that I get triggered road rage and commuting and just being Boston traffic. Sometimes I tap into my level 2 energy. I'm not going to lie. So asking yourself, where can you start accepting and taking responsibility for how you want to show up in your own life, for how you want to interact with others, for how you want to be seen, right? Because you're also putting out energy. Other people are feeding off that energy. And if you're showing up with level 2 energy, often people are feeding off of that as well and noticing it. So what would it really look like for you to release level 2 energy, and what thoughts might you have to let go of and shift to be able to move out of level 2 and into a different level of energy? And really, if you have a quick fuse or a hot temper, or you fall into level 2 energy often, what would it look like to show up differently and to be able to release these feelings? So that's level 2, pretty hot and heavy. Okay, level 3. Now this is an interesting shift because level 3 energy is the first level of energy that is both anabolic and catabolic energy. It's a mixture of the two. So if you look at that self-perception chart, this is the first level of energy that's in that lighter blue circle. So this is kind of an interesting place in the levels. And so the thought often behind level 3 energy is that of taking responsibility for your time and for your energy. And the emotion is often that of forgiveness, forgiving others and forgiving yourself for how you're showing up, how you're utilizing your time and energy. And the action, therefore, is cooperation. You're cooperating with yourself, you're cooperating with others, you're cooperating with the energy you have and with the time that you have. And so often, a thought example, an inner dialogue thought example is, I cooperate and work with time and energy, so I win. And if others benefit, that's great too. So this is the first energy level where it's not 100% about the self and the self-ego. There is a lot of self still in this energy level, but now you're starting to be aware of others around you, the world and life around you that is also interacting with your energetics. So this is a really interesting level because this is, like I said, the start of the energetic shift. So this is the level where you start to rationalize your energy and your time. You are tolerating how you're showing up in your life. This is the energy level where you have thoughts that things are good enough for now. At least I have this job. I don't love it, but at least I have this job. At least my boyfriend is a good enough guy, even though he doesn't make me that happy. At least I have some friends, even if they always are complaining and negative. It's that land of at least. And so you're basically, when you're in this energy level, you're tolerating how you're showing up. Things are okay. They're doable. They're good enough for now. They're not your dream vision. They're not exciting. They're not fulfilling you with purpose and joy and uplifting positivity. They're just fine. They're okay. So this is really the energy level where we all tend to settle. And a lot of us settle. We settle for good enough because it's okay and it's comfortable. And it's not as draining or as negative or as reactionary as level 1 and 2 energy. So it feels okay for now. And so when we have this at least thought pattern, when we are kind of tolerating and sacrificing parts of our life, what ends up happening is that we start to create stories in our head that we believe. We start to create rules and beliefs that we live by that aren't necessarily true and aren't necessarily supporting ourselves. So there's a lot of self-manipulation and manipulating of others in this level 3 energy field. Oftentimes we're wearing a mask because we're disguising what we really want and how we really want to show up, because right now things are fine and they are good enough. So that's level 3 energy, and it really, you're still coming from the land of lack and sacrifice versus the land of abundance and joy. So this is the last catabolic energy level. So I just want to invite you to check in with yourself right now and consider, where in your life are you justifying and tolerating how you're energetically showing up? What are you settling for? What does that settling look like for you? How are you showing up in this sacrifice mode? What are you sacrificing in your life? For yourself, for your others, for your job, for your boss? And if you were to shift out of sacrifice mode and into abundance mode, into fully connection mode, into opportunity and curiosity, what would that look like for you? How would you show up differently? And what kind of rules and habits and false truths do you have to let go of to be able to make this shift? So, okay, I'm gonna jump out of this real quick, just see, because those are the 3 main levels. I just want to see if there are any other questions right now real quick. So if you have a question, those are the 3 lowest levels of energy. So if you have any questions, type them out real quick while I grab a quick sip of water, and then we're going to cover the last 4 real quick. Okay, I don't see any questions. So we're going back to the other levels of energy. Here we go. Okay. So level 4 energy is completely anabolic. This is where we really are giving to others. So the thought is concern for others. The emotion is that of compassion. So compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. And the action is that of service. So this is the energy level where you might be thinking or recognizing in your life that I am gladly giving and sharing with others my time and energy. And by doing so, I am boosted and recharged through love of service. So for those of you who love to help, who love to mentor, who love to teach, and who get a boost, an energetic boost from that, that is level 4 energy. So there's no longer the feeling of lack of time, lack of energy. Instead, you're willingly giving your time to others because you want to help them, you want to serve them, and that re-energizes you. So this is, you can tell the difference between 3 and 4. This is a much more positive, higher level of energy. And this level of energy is all about serving others, helping others, but it's also about serving yourself. So this is the level of energy where self-care really comes into play because you are concerned about yourself. You want to be compassionate to yourself. You want to have that self-care time to boost your spiritual side, maybe your energetics, your mental side, your physical side. So this is all about giving freely and openly. And so this is the first level where again, feels like time and energy is no longer limited, no longer a lack of time or energy. There's actually enough. So a lot of people experience level 4 energy. I resonate really high in this energy level, which is why I love to teach and mentor, and which I love coaching, right? Because I love to help others and I love to be there and support them and guide them. So that's a lot of level 4 energy. So I just want you to ask yourself, how do you show up with this level of energy? When do you experience level 4 in your life? When are you compassionate towards others? Are you helping them or guiding them? How are you able to recognize this energy level in your life And what are some of the thoughts that you have around level 4 energy when you're showing up with it? What are the feelings you have tied to it? And therefore, what are the action steps? How are you serving? How are you educating? How are you helping others? So that is level 4 energy. Moving along, level 5 energy. The thought around level 5 energy, again, this is very anabolic. We're moving up the spectrum. So the thought is about reconciliation with time and with energy. So bringing together time and energy. There is no longer judgment, good, bad, pretty, not pretty enough, good enough, not good enough, right? Judgment starts to fade away, and so does that ego. So this is no longer an ego-centered energy level. So the emotion we feel when we tap into this is that of peace, of groundedness. And the action is that of acceptance, accepting time and energy for what it is. So the thought dialogue is acceptance of time and energy we have in life, and the realization that we are winning and succeeding at life exactly as we are meant to. So this energy level is all about feeling calm and grounded and really living in the moment. This is really when we tap into curiosity and inspiration, when we kind of let fear go. Fear is a level 1 energy, and we are allowing ourselves to utilize our time and energy differently. We take risks with it. We really push ourselves energetically. We make the most of our time. And this level of energy, time and energy, is not at all at a lack, it's at an abundance. And we really are just living in the moment, in the present moment. So there is no judging or labeling of time and energy. The way that life unfolds is the way that life unfolds, and it's the acceptance of that and the working with it. So you just feel really balanced in this energy level, and you have a lot of high life satisfaction and happiness. So there's just a lot of fulfillment with purpose and with self. And so as you kind of think about this level of energy and how it's so growth-oriented and opportunity-oriented, where in your life do you experience level 5 energy? When do you have this mindset that what you have is enough, that you're satisfied where you are in the moment, and that you have all the energy and time that you need? How do you show up this way? When do you show up this way? And how do you know? How can you tap into it more often? How can you move from those lower levels of energy into this level 5, which is all about opportunity and growth? All right, level 6 energy coming at you. So this is the start of the outermost ring on that self-perception chart. This is the start of that purple level. And level 6 is a very high anabolic energy. And a lot of people don't actually resonate in level 6 for long periods of time. They definitely tap into it and they can utilize it, but they don't tend to resonate at it as often as people tend to resonate in the levels of 3, 4, and 5. So the thought around level 6 energy is that of synthesis. Just that's how time and energy and synthesis. And the emotion we feel is that of joy, pure joy. And the action is wisdom. We're wise enough to be aware of how time and energy are tied in and interwoven and interconnected with each other. So the thought is the feeling of interconnectedness to time and energy. There is always enough. There is never that lack. And so people who experience and tap into level 6 energy, this is where they really tap in with intuition, with their gut. This comes from the heart. Where some of the lower levels of energy, especially level 3, comes from the head. This is all about the heart and intuition. So when you feel really connected to life around you, when you feel supercharged and energetic, kind of like you're buzzing, or that natural high you often get when you do something you love, that's level 6 energy. When you're doing those activities that you lose complete track of time, when you're kind of in what we call the flow, where you just are so absorbed in whatever it is that you're doing, you just feel passion and alignment and purpose, you're living your true values, that's level 6 energy. So you're living purposely and in the moment. You're not living in the past where there's regret and shame and guilt, and you're not living in the future where there's anxiety and worry and concern. You're right in the moment, and things are the way they're supposed to be. So that's level 6. And I just want to invite you to kind of think about that idea of flow and purpose and alignment. When was the last time you were in flow? What were you doing? How did you feel? What inspired you? What motivated you? And And how can you incorporate more of that energetic, more of that feeling into your life? How can you incorporate more of that purpose and living your true self, your true values? How can you tap into that and resonate in that energy level? And what will you attract, right? If energy attracts like energy, if you're in level 6 energy, what are you going to attract into your life? What people and opportunities? So kind of think on that. All right, and this is the last level of energy, level 7. And truth be told, no one resonates in level 7 energy. People can tap into it for mere moments of time, but no one resonates here. And so the thought is that of non-judgment. There is no judgment, no time, no energy. The emotion is that of absolute passion. And the action, therefore, is total creation. And so actually, when you tap into level 7 energy, the belief is that time, energy, life satisfaction, all of that is an illusion. So this is like a little bit of sometimes it's hard to grasp level 7. It's a little abstract, but the way that you can describe it is the zone of unconditional love and ecstasy. And you can also think of it as like a bright white light. All the colors make up white light. So this is kind of encompassing all the levels of energy. And people can tap into level 7 energy through meditation, through prayer, through intention setting. That's how people can mindfully tap into this level of energy. So I'm going to wrap up this PowerPoint real quick, and then I'm going to come back into the live chat just to touch base. So the goal of this webinar, here it is, the keys to success, the goal of this webinar, the takeaways I want you to have. I want you to ask yourself when you're processing this information, maybe if you're re-watching the recording, how are you energetically showing up in your life on an average day and when you're under stress and overwhelmed? And how do you want to show up? What is that disconnect? Where are you depleting energy and therefore wasting your time? And what would it look like if you could more easily shift from those lower levels of energy to the upper ones? If you could shift from 1 to 3 or 2 to 3, and then from 3 shift to 4, 5, and 6, what would that look like? What would that bring into your life? So to be able to do this on your own, it's not that complicated. The first step is just to have awareness, to have the information ready, to be able to remember it, to tap into it. And that's what that energy chart is for, is to allow you to remember this information and to be more aware of how you're energetically showing up in your life. And then when you tap into those energetics, when you become more aware of how you're showing up and how other people are showing up, then choosing acceptance. Accept what level you're resonating at. Know that it's okay. It's okay to be at level 1. It's okay to tap into level 2, right? It's normal. It's human. But once you accept where you are, making the choice right then and there to consciously make a shift, to change whatever thought you're having to a different thought that's going to boost your energy level and energy supply. So that is step 3, is taking that action move. We know that if we shift our thoughts, simple shift, we then show up energetically differently. We then have different emotions and different feelings. And this allows us to step into the right kind of action that's going to get us to bring us what we want in our life, to attract what we want in our life. So the secret tool that I use with my clients is just shifting, having the awareness to shift your thought, to recognize where you're energetically showing up, and then to make those changes. So let's see the last slide. For those of you who have enjoyed tonight's webinar and want to continue, getting little pieces of advice and examples and client success stories, I share all the time on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and you can also get on my email list. So I just want to invite you to do that. And now I'm just going to wrap up this webinar. So for those of you who are still here, awesome. Feel free to type any questions that might be coming up for you. Like I said, yes. Is it more likely to grow into the higher levels? Yes, it is much more likely. So that's a great question. So once you have this awareness and you start to practice it and implement it, and kind of consciously decide to practice and implement it, then you're more likely to be able to bounce. You're going to first start to bounce for less time or resonate less time in the lower levels. You're going to be able to move out of them faster. And then over time, you also won't dip into them quite as often. So it's also what I really want to encourage you to do is check in with yourself throughout the next couple of days to see when you're resonating in the different levels. But also you can use these energetics, and you can, the people that you interact with around you, the people you read about in books, characters, and the characters on TV shows and movies, you can sit with this chart and you can figure out from their actions and their dialogue and how they're feeling, which energetic levels they're resonating at. So you get to practice. You can practice with other people, and you can practice with yourself and check in with yourself. And the more that you practice and build your own awareness through trial and error and discipline, you're going to be able to move yourself out of the lower levels faster. And you're also not going to dip into them quite as often. Now, you are human. I'm human, so I do fall into them. But because I have a lot more awareness and practice, I've been doing energetics for a couple years now, I don't tend to stay as angry for as long or be in the victim mode for as long as I once was. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so just want to wrap up and just share with you that my vision today, my goal was just to share with you all about energetics and how energetics and time are interconnected, and just to teach you a way, kind of like we just explored, for you to be able to use this information to make some changes in your life, to shift your mindset, to shift your awareness, and to show up differently. And when you show up differently, you're not as depleted, when you're not draining your energy, and that's even subconsciously, you're going to open up yourself to new opportunities, to new connections. You're going to have more time to be able to do the things that you love outside of just work or whatever it is that's taking up so much of your time. So I really just wanted to be able to share this information with you all. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. If you're here live with me, there's 5 of you here right now. It's awesome. And I know a bunch of you are going to watch the replay. So just thank you so much for taking the time and just boosting your awareness and just being open to self-discovery and self-growth, because this is one of the steps towards making some positive changes in your life. So at this point, the last 4 minutes, I'm going to be talking about those 2 follow-up opportunities. So if you're all set and you're not interested, feel free to hop off at any time. I've really loved having you here with me tonight. And for those of you who are interested, this will just take 2 more minutes of your evening. So there are 2 follow-up opportunities where you can take, this is kind of the surface level of energetics, where you can take this energetic work and apply it to the next level. So the first opportunity, I actually have access to an energy leadership index assessment. Now this is an assessment that you can take. It takes about 15 minutes, and then we go over it together in about an hour debrief session. And this energetic assessment actually lets you know, on average, which energy level do you resonate at most commonly on any day-to-day. What kind of attitude are you showing up with energetically? How are you viewing the world? Which energy level do you tend to kind of view the world at on a regular day? And then it also lets you know when you're under stress, when you're under pressure, when you feel overwhelmed, which lower level of energy you tend to dip into. And it really helps you pinpoint specifically what those triggers are and where those areas that are bringing you down in your life, and what is part of your day-to-day life and energetically. So this assessment's really great for people who just want to clarify how they're showing up energetically and what that looks like for them. And what's so fun is that with some of my clients, when we start our work together, we take this energy assessment, we go over, we debrief it. They then do some work with me for a chunk of time, and then they retake the assessment. And the cool thing is that the energy assessment, it's not a personality test. It's not a strength finder test, which tends to be pretty concrete. Energetics changes, especially when you choose to show up differently. You choose to change your mindset and let go of old beliefs, old habits that aren't serving you, and incorporate new rules and new beliefs and habits. It changes your energetics. And so at the end of our work together, they can retake the assessment and see how they're energetically showing up differently, which is really cool. So that's the first opportunity. The second opportunity is just one-on-one work, coaching work. If you're someone who's recognizing that, hey, I'm kind of living on level 3. Life is okay. It's doable. It's fine. But it could be better. It could be, I could be happier. I could be connecting with people differently. I could be open to more opportunities. I just don't know how. Feel free to reach out. I would love to connect, because we can dive into some deeper one-on-one work together. And people that I work with, some of the benefits they get from the work, better work-life balance, more time for themselves to do the things that they love, Sometimes we get real tactical and really schedule out their week so they know exactly what they're doing, where they're wasting time. Also, we decrease stress and anxiety and increase overall life satisfaction. We kind of take life from good, we move it to great. So the analogy I love to use when I'm working with my clients is that when I work with clients one-on-one, we basically take that junk drawer that's probably in your kitchen that's full of all the odds and ends and random pieces, parts, and just kind of crap you would just throw into that junk drawer. We take that junk drawer, which is the analogy for your life, and we go through it. We sort through all those odds and ends. We go through everything that's making up your life, and we see what's working for you, what's serving you, and what is draining you and depleting you and holding you back. And we go through it, and we throw out and recycle what is no longer needed, what is old, what is broken. And then we reorganize that junk drawer, and we put in new tools and new pieces of equipment so that you can make, you can move, again, your life from good to great. So those are the two opportunities, the energy assessment and one-on-one personal coaching, individual coaching, or obviously a combination of both. But those are two different ways you can take tonight's information and apply it personally to the next level. So I just wanted to offer that to those of you who are interested. And I also want to invite you to, again, you have my email. I'm going to be sending you guys all the recording tomorrow once it downloads and processes. So if you have questions, if you want to follow up, please reach out. Do not be shy. And if you're interested in learning more about coaching and learning more about this assessment, let's hop on a call. I always offer a free strategy session before I make any commitment or offer any commitment, because I really want to make sure that we're the right fit for one another, and that we will jive and work well together, and that you're going to get what you want out of any sort of agreement. So that wraps up 1 minute over 61 minutes. That wraps up this webinar, all about boosting your time and boosting your energy and maximizing your time. I just hope that you walk away with a few new nuggets to mull over. And tomorrow, I encourage you, check in with your energetics, see where you're resonating, and then come back with any questions or concerns. So that is it. If you have any, feel free to hop off at any time. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll stick around for another minute or two. So if you have any questions, type them in the box. And if not, have a great night. Bye.